Hello everyone, I'm Pam Churches from Quilt Beginnings in Dublin, Ohio, and we're beginning a series on the Baby Lock sewing and embroidery machines. And I happen to love the Baby Lock sewing and embroidery machines because they are so easy to use. So this is going to be the basic lesson on how to thread a machine and how to wind your bobbin. And this covers basically the top of the line machines. So we are going to cover this series. We'll focus on the Solaris, which is the top of the line, followed by the Altair, which basically replaced the Destiny. The Altair's counterpart with the embroidery only machine is the Meridian. And then we also have the new Ariel, which replaced the Unity. And with the Unity, we have the embroidery only machine, the Spirit. We also will be focusing on the Crescendo and Aria, which are sewing only machines, and of course the Journey. So this video covers any of those machines. Before we can begin to thread the machine, we have to understand how the icons, the buttons on the front of the machine work. So very quickly, I'm just going to cover the buttons on the front of your machine. And these buttons will be on all of your machines. The first one is your Start Stop button. And when the Start Stop button is red, you can't do anything. If you touch this button, the beauty of a Baby Lock machine is it'll tell you what you have to do to make something work. So never be afraid to touch this button if you don't know what you're doing, because it'll give you the command on the screen of what you need to do to have something happen. Above that, we have the reverse button. When the machine comes out of the box, this is strictly a reverse button. It does serve some other functions, and we will talk about that in a further video. Above that, this is an end of pattern button. When you touch this, and this is provided you have other things depressed on your machine, which we will get to, but this one will finish the pattern and then it will do your tie off or quit, depending on what you have designated on the machine. The next one is needle up, needle down. So if I touch this button, it changes the needle from the opposite position. So now my needle's down. If I push it, it brings my needle up. This one is the automatic thread cutter. If you ever want to cut your thread, you will depress this button. However, once again, there are certain things that you can depress on your machine, and when those are activated, it'll do a cut automatically without you having to touch this button. This one is your presser foot up down. So when we push this, it puts the presser foot down and the presser foot back up. This is your speed control. Now this also serves another function, which we will talk about. It can actually be a width control, but when your machine comes out of the box, this increases your speed. So if you put it at the slowest speed, no matter how hard you depress your foot pedal, it's going to go in slow motion. If you want to sew at the fastest speed, we're going to move it here. And this one is your automatic thread needle threader. It's your NeverMiss needle threader. And we're going to demonstrate that in just a minute. So now we're going to talk about threading the machine. So when we open up the lid of the machine, the first thing that I'd like for people to know is every domestic machine has to be threaded with your presser foot up. And there are tension discs in here, and that's what holds the thread. And when the presser foot's up, the tension discs are open, and when the presser foot is down, it's closed. Baby Lock has a built-in safety feature, so if you look at door number 4, and all of the machines are marked number 4, the presser foot is up. When I put the presser foot down, you're going to see that the door is closed. That's a safety feature. You cannot thread a Baby Lock machine with the presser foot down. So with the presser foot up, we can now thread. Let's thread our machine. The first thing we're going to do is put our thread on the spool pin, and you'll notice that there is a felt pad here which acts as a shock absorber, followed by a spool cap that is the same size or a bit smaller than your actual spool. If you look at the Baby Lock machine, you're going to notice that they've numbered everything for us. So we're going to take the thread and we are just simply going to put it under this little brass piece, follow path number 1. We're going to come around 2 says take the thread down, and notice that I have my presser foot up I know because my door is opened. Number 3 just says go ahead and make a U-turn here. I'm going to come back up on the right side to number 4 and down on the left side. The thread will go where it needs to go. Now, to emphasize the point that I just made, you can see right now there is no tension on the machine, on the thread. If I put my presser foot down, now I've got tension. I can't pull on that. So now I know that I have this thread engaged in the uptake. At this point, it doesn't matter if my presser foot is up or down, but I am going to come, number 5 is just bringing it down, and 6, we have to pull it behind this little piece. Now, when we go to number 7, we just want to take it across and into this slit. I find sometimes that people want to take their finger and hold it down, or they want to put it behind here. That's going to give you incorrect tension and it will not go into the needle threader. So you're just simply going to lay this across the metal piece, click it into number 7 here, and then you're going to cut your thread on the side of the machine. It makes the thread exactly as long as it needs to be. And then you're going to touch your NeverMiss needle threader. And when you touch it, you're going to see that it threads your machine perfectly. Let's do that needle threading one more time. We're going to place our spool on the spool cap. I'm going to use my spool cap to hold it. I'm going to take my thread and place it underneath the metal bar, follow the number 1, come down 2, 3 says make a U-turn. I'm going to come up on the right side to number 4, down on the left side. 5 just says pull your thread down. 6, I'm going to pull it through there. And I want to just lay it across here so the thread's taut. Cut my thread and push the needle threader. And my needle's threaded. If your needle does not thread the first time, I want you to stop and I want you to use the needle down, needle up key. What happens is we have all gotten in the habit of turning our hand wheel when we travel with our machines, or we turn our hand wheel because we think that the needle's not in the right position. And the way the needle threader works is here's the eye of your needle, and so that needle threader has a little finger, and what it does is it goes into the needle and it pulls that thread through. If you've moved your needle, either by messing with your hand wheel or changing your needle, that needle may not be in the right place. So what happens is if we've moved the needle, the finger goes over, and instead of hitting the eye, it hits the needle and it actually bends that little finger. If you do it once, it's not a big deal, but what happens is it doesn't thread the first time, and so you keep hitting that needle threader and keep hitting that needle threader, and it bends it and bends it and bends it more. And then you have to bring it in to get a new needle threader. So I always tell people, if you understand why something's happening, you'll know what to do. So if it doesn't thread the first time, stop. The easiest thing to do is do needle down, needle up, the needle's in the correct position, and it should thread. When you stop sewing, the needle always ends in the correct position. So now let's wind a bobbin. Again, we are going to put our spool, and this time we're putting it on the bobbin pin. And again, we want to use a spool cap that is not larger than the end of our spool. So your spool pin is going to be raised. We're going to take the thread, and again, Baby Lock has the numbering system, which makes it very easy. So the first thing we're going to do is pull it off our thread, and like dental floss, we're going to pull it through slot number 2. It has to click in there. Then we want to wind it clockwise through the tension disc here. So you want to make sure you get it into the tension disc and pull it so that it's nice and tight. You're going to follow the thread path. We're going to take it over to our bobbin. The bobbin does not have a top or a bottom. It can go on either way. You want to make sure you snap it so that the bobbin goes all the way down. And number 4 is to wrap it around here and wrap it clockwise. Again, there's a picture, and we want to wrap it around about 4 or 5 times. And then there's a little slit right here which actually has a razor blade, and that's where we're going to cut our thread. The goal is to cut the thread and have it remain there so that there's tension on it. Then we're going to engage our bobbin winder. So when I engage the bobbin winder, you're going to see that my screen changes. No matter what was on your screen before, when you engage the bobbin winding pin, this little bobbin winding screen comes up. You can choose how fast you want your bobbin to wind. I usually wind everything on the fastest speed, except if I'm doing monopoly thread, the clear monopoly thread, or if you're doing some kind of an elastic thread, any thread that stretches, you want to wind it slower because the thread's going to stretch as it winds, and then when you sew, the thread could snap. So this is just regular cotton thread, so I'm going to wind it fast, and when I hit the start key, the bobbin starts winding. Now the beauty of a Solaris, the top of the line machine, we can actually choose to make our bobbin a quarter of a bobbin, 3/8 of a bobbin, a half bobbin, etc. So I had this on a quarter bobbin and it stopped when it got to a quarter. The other beauty of the Baby Lock machine is it has a separate motor for winding your bobbins. So if you're in the middle of sewing or you're doing embroidery, while your machine is functioning on the lower half, you can be winding a bobbin with that separate motor. When you're finished winding your bobbin, you're simply going to lift your bobbin, and I always like to use this thread cutter right here and go ahead and cut my thread, and my bobbin's ready to go. Just a word to the wise about bobbin winding. Before you start winding your bobbin, always give this bobbin pin a clockwise turn just to make sure it's seated in place. What often happens is when people go to cut the thread, they actually pull so hard that this becomes unseated, and what happens is the thread winds below here. I've had many a person come into the shop and say it wound below the bobbin pin and I had to unwind that. If that happens, and if it's never happened to you, you're really lucky and you've been really good at winding a bobbin, but just know that this pin lifts up, so if you stick a finger under here and pull this up, all that thread will just be lopped here and you can lift it off. You don't have to sit there and unwind your mistake. If you look at the back of the bobbin pin, there are two large openings, and those are going to line up with this pin here, and you just snap it on. So I'm just going to push it down, and you can hear if I turn this, it clicks into place. So let's place our bobbin in the bobbin case. The first thing I'm going to do is pop off the bobbin cover, and I want my thread coming off the left side of the bobbin forming a P. And if you look on your bobbin cover, there's a picture, so I'm going to drop it in here. I like to put my finger on the bobbin. We're going to follow the thread path, making a U-turn, and when I get it to about 9 o'clock, you can feel that there's tension on the bobbin, and I'm going to continue to make that U-turn until I get to the bottom and cut my thread. And that's all I need to do with the bobbin. I don't need to pull my thread up. And I'm going to replace my bobbin case, and I'm ready to sew. Let's do it one more time. See that there's tension on it. I'm going to have my thread coming down, drop it into the bobbin case, hold my finger on it, bring the thread up. I can feel it in tension, come back around, cut my thread, and replace the bobbin case. Now that we have our Baby Lock machine threaded, we're ready to begin sewing. When you turn your machine on, you usually get a screen similar to this if you have a sewing and embroidery machine. So you're going to see a sewing category and other categories. If you're on an embroidery only machine, such as the Spirit, the Meridian, or the Pathfinder, this is not going to be an option. But just to get you sewing, if you touch the sewing category, when you get your machine out of the box, it defaults to stitch number 1-03, which is straight stitch in the middle. There are a couple features I want to point out very quickly, and those are the pivot function and your tie-off functions. So what these do, if I have my tie-off functions engaged, when I start sewing, it's going to do a tie-off. If I depress my pivot function, whenever I stop sewing, it's going to end with the needle down, presser foot up, so that I can pivot. If these are not engaged, it is strictly going to sew with no tie-offs. So now that we've talked about those buttons, let's see how they work. If I depress none of these, and I put my presser foot down and I start sewing, it sews with no tie-off. Let's cut our thread. And this time, let's engage our pivot function and our tie-off functions. So now when I start sewing, put my presser foot down, and I'm going to turn this to slow motion so you can see that it's going to do a tie-off, doing forward 3, backwards 3, and let's crank up the speed, and now it's going to sew. When I stop sewing, because the pivot function is engaged, now I can pivot my fabric. I don't have to put the presser foot back down. I simply depress my foot pedal and it goes. Presser foot down, I can turn. When I get to the end, because I have the tie-offs engaged, if I touch my reverse button, it's going to go into slow motion and do backwards 3, forward 3, cut my thread, lift the presser foot. A couple other things I want to mention just in this basic training part is you're going to notice the length, the width, left, right, shift, and tension. So when you turn on your machine, the length is always a 2.5 millimeter stitch. If I want a baste, I'm just going to touch the plus button, and if you depress and hold, it's going to stop at the longest stitch that it will make. So 5.0 millimeters is a basting stitch. And if you've noticed, if I've changed it from default, it's no longer highlighted in black. If I want to change my width on a straight stitch, width is really changing needle position, and you can see that changing on my screen. However, on a baby lock, we don't have to change the width. We could also change the left-right shift, and that does the same thing. Now, if you turn the machine off, everything resets to default. I could also just press this until it goes back in the black box, or I can touch my little pocket and hit reset, and everything goes back to its default. This may look different on different machines, but there's a reset button somewhere in the bottom part of your machine. Okay, to further illustrate the length and width, let's go to the basic zigzag stitch, which is stitch 109 on this machine. And you can see it shows the stitch, and it also shows the foot that we should be using. The J foot is just your universal foot that you're going to use for most of your stitches. And if you look at the screen, if I start depressing the width, if I make the width larger, you're going to see that it changes in real time on the machine. The same way if I change the length. So if I make the length smaller, it gets tighter so that I could make a satin stitch. So you're always going to see what your stitch looks like on the machine before you start sewing. So now that we've talked about navigating length, width, shift, and tension, let's talk about where our stitches are located. If you're on the Ariel, the Crescendo, the Aria, any of those machines, if you have a scroll bar over here that says 1 of 3, that means there's more stitches in this category. So you're going to notice we're in utility stitches and we're in category 1. We have more stitches that aren't visible, and I can find those by scrolling through this. So you're going to see I'm on page 1 of 3, page 2 of 3, page 3 of 3. If you're on a Destiny or if you're on a Solaris, you can actually take your thumb and scroll through the stitches. And on the Solaris, you're going to notice that your stitch categories are at the top of the machine. So these are basic utility stitches. Still, in utility stitches, we have some decorative stitches. We have our buttonhole category. We have our multi-directional category, and I love this feature on the Baby Lock machine. This actually allows us to sew to the left, we could sew down, we could sew to the right, and people ask in class all the time what I would use that for. So let's say that you had a patch that you wanted to sew onto a bag. You could actually lay this on your bag, sew into the bag, sew down, sew back out of the bag, and sew back up. So I think that's a really cool feature on the Baby Lock machine. And these are quilting stitches. So you can go into your settings and have it come up to this category instead of category 1. And these are stitches that they think quilters use most of the time. But all of these are in utility stitches. The second category is character and decorative stitches, and we will cover that in a future video. Some of the other icons that I want to show you, but we'll go into more detail in a future video. This may appear at the top or the bottom of your machine, just depending on which machine it is, but this is your settings page, and we'll cover that in great detail. This is if you have a question about something, and I love this feature on the Baby Lock machine. So we talked about threading the machine, we talked about winding a bobbin. Let's say you absolutely forget how to do one of those, and you don't want to pull this video up. If I go to my question mark, I know that winding a bobbin is under Operation Guide. So if I touch the Operation Guide, I know that winding a bobbin is a basic operation. So if I touch it, it shows the parts of the machine. So we know that we wind the bobbin on the top of the machine. If I touch that, it brings up a tutorial. And in this machine, I can read through 22 pages and it'll show me exactly how to wind the bobbin. But there's more. On the Baby Lock machines, they actually have a video camera here. So if I touch the video camera, it'll actually bring the video up that shows me in real time how to wind my bobbin. And you can see the first thing she did was turn the bobbin a quarter turn to seat it correctly. So now that we've been sewing for a while, we always have to remember to clean our machine. So in order to clean our machine, our accessory tray needs to be open to get this off. And while I have the accessory tray open, I just wanted to show that Baby Lock has these cool little trays, and your feet lock into here. They're also labeled by letter so that you can find which foot you need easily. And if things are pushed in all the way, when we turn it over, we don't lose anything. So if you have a machine that has sewing and embroidery, you've got multiple trays and you can put either tray in. So if you're always using the basic feet, you can engage this one, or there are other trays that you can select from. In any case, when I get ready to clean my machine, I either need to have this open or I can pull it off for free arm sewing. I like to tell people to take things off and lay them in order, and then when we put them back onto the machine, we'll put them on the reverse order from which we took them off. So the first thing we're going to do, we need to make sure our presser foot is up, and this is for every machine except for the Solaris. The Solaris has a little bit different and nicer way of taking this off, and I'll show you that in just a minute. But the first thing I'm going to do is take off my bobbin cover, and I'm going to lay it down, and then I'm going to take my bobbin out. Once I do that, I need to take this gray piece off. If you just stick your nail in here and pull towards you, it comes off very easily. So I'm going to lift it up. Then the bobbin case is tilted at about a 45-degree angle and pulled out. Now, any place that we can see in here needs to be cleaned. So we're going to take our nylon brush that came with our accessories, and we're going to clean in this area any lint that you can see, any threads, etc. Never blow into your machine and never use canned air because we don't want to blow those particles further into the machine. Now, every once in a while, we need to take this cover off, and people are afraid to do this. Do not be afraid to take this off, but we also need to clean the area that's underneath here. Depending on which machine you will have one of these two kinds of screwdrivers. This screwdriver, I find this edge works well, but I find it's much easier to use the side of this to loosen these screws. This screwdriver is a multifunction screwdriver that comes with some of the machines. And if we have it in position 1, this screwdriver can be used to do things like take your needle out. If it's in position 2, it's easy to access these screws to take it out. And for those that you have an embroidery machine, if we push it to 3 and lock it all the way in, there is a piece, the screwdriver goes into here, and this now can be used to tighten your hoop. It's a great feature on the baby lock machine. In any case, once we get these screws loosened, you can finish taking them out with your finger. Once the screws are loosened, we can lift the whole plate with the screws intact and remove it. Do not be afraid to clean in these areas. Any place where you see dust or lint, you're going to clean that out with your brush. Once we've cleaned the entire area underneath the throat plate, we're going to put things back on in the reverse order. So the first thing we're going to do is put our silver plate and tighten the screws. Okay, when we put this back on, we're going to finish tightening our screws, and we don't need to over tighten them, but we do want it tight enough. The next thing we need to do is put our bobbin case in. And this is the part that gives the people most problems. So I'm going to show you a couple things to make it easier for you. First of all, you can see that my bobbin case is round, and at the top it's kind of flat. The flat part is the part that is going to face my presser foot. Number 2, if you look at 5 o'clock on your bobbin case, there is a little white arrow. If you look at your metal piece here, there's also a white dot. Those 2 white dots at 5 o'clock need to match up. Number 3, if you look here on our bobbin case, there's a 90-degree cutout here, and we have a 90-degree angle here on our throat plate. So what I want to do is line up my dots at 5 o'clock, tip it in at about a 45-degree angle, simply drop it down, and it should free float like that. Once the bobbin case has been seated properly, we're going to put this gray piece back on. If you look at the reverse side of this, there is a little hinge. This little hinge needs to match up with this hole. When I lay it there and have the hinge in the hole, I simply press this back in place. Then I'm going to insert my bobbin like we did previously, dropping it in, holding my finger on, making the U-turn, tension at 9 o'clock, cut my thread, and I'm going to replace my bobbin cover. So for those of you who have the Solaris, cleaning your machine is even easier. Okay, so a lot of people are asking me what this is for. This is what releases your throat plate. One thing that you don't have to do is remove this or open this up. By simply releasing this, it pops the entire throat plate off with your bobbin cover still attached, and the rest is the same. I would take out my bobbin and my bobbin case, clean all the area that needs to be cleaned. Cleaning is the same. We're still going to wipe it out, remove any of the lint that we can. We're going to take our bobbin case. Again, we're going to insert it matching the white dots at 5 o'clock, tipping it in at about a 45-degree angle, making sure that our bobbin case free floats. At this point, you can insert your bobbin. I find it easier just to install this, push down, and I like to put my bobbin in last, just so that I make sure I get it in all of the tension discs. Cut my thread, replace my bobbin case, and I'm ready to go. So now that we have covered the basic threading, winding a bobbin, inserting our bobbin, and basic maintenance on the machine, I hope you see how easy the Baby Lock machine is to use. Look forward to seeing you in future videos.